shit. Now I'll pay attention, I guess. And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Strategy Show. It is Friday, July 8th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by PrizePicks. We've got the big one today, 14-game MLB slate. Lots to break down. We're going to be here for a bit, so buckle up. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, you were knocking on the door last night. Tell me about it.
Yeah, decent night. I think I broke even, but that was good because I put like $2,000 into a qualifier and didn't win that. So it was nice to break even. But yeah, I came ninth in the big DraftKings tournament. Pretty sure if I had Strider over Musgrove or Cease, I would have won, but oh well. Ended up with a lot of Seattle, which I certainly didn't expect.
Yeah.
They did well, obviously. JD Davis with the big game. But yeah, didn't quite get there, but you know, what can you do?
When you look at your lineup, do you think, like, ignoring the actual results and stuff, do you think like the pitching combination is correct for that lineup?
Yes. I mean, like, it could have certainly been Strider over Musgrove. The highest owned hitter in my lineup is Cal Raleigh at 7.8%. So
Okay.
like, it could have been Strider, but like, also knowing that I build using randomness, like it's Musgrove. Like, I don't care. If it had been, I don't know, some random
somebody worse than Musgrove.
Yeah. Like, I don't think there even was like a bad pay up option last night in terms of projection, but like,
Agree.
if there was, you know, then I would be okay. Like, that was a bad lineup, but yeah, it just happened to be Musgrove over Strider or whatever.
Yeah. Not much you could do. It's always good to like take a look back at that and think like, oh, did my process make a lineup that I'm like also still happy with? Or did I? And yeah, like Musgrove over Strider is just going to be like, them's the breaks for that day. You know, that's
exactly
nothing you can do there. And obviously Strider smashed.
And like, obviously it doesn't even go into like, I mean, it's not like the results matter in this conversation, but like Musgrove had a good game anyway. It just so happened that Strider scored 35 DraftKings points.
For sure. Well, we got a lot to talk about today. Some truly preposterous strategy or salaries on the pitching side of this one. Like, for what we had yesterday, today's the opposite. It's bizarre to talk about pitching today. So I'm really excited to break down everything we have there. I think we should just get into it. 14 games.
Yeah, sounds good. Larry C asked if you saw that a basically non-stacked lineup won the Minimax.
I did not, but that's my expectation pretty much every night. Like, for how big the Minimaxes are, you're going to see, unless you have days where like some individual team hangs 14, 15 runs, like the Mets were working on it yesterday and certainly very necessary. But when it comes to the Minimax, you're going to see unstacked lineups win that more frequently than I would say stacked, just because of the makeup of that contest. You're going to get a lot of people that are playing unstacked lineups. And when you have like 25,000 of them, one of them is bound to be pretty decent. It's hard enough to find that decent one in 150, but when most of the entries in the contest are going to be unstacked stuff in comparison to like the relay throw, for sure.
Yeah. John Warner just said that the Padres, I guess, blew a save. I didn't know that. But obviously immediately just checked to see how far 4 points would have moved me, but would have just gotten me to fourth. So
okay. Even
6,000,
still, like
6,000 instead of 1,000. Like, I would have preferred that, but it's not like
right. It's not 6 to first.
Right, exactly.
All right, let's get into it. Orioles and Angels, first game up, 4.5 run implied total for the O's, 3.9 for the Angels. Can't talk. Tyler Wells going for Baltimore, Reed Detmers going for the Angels. Neither guy really pulling any ownership. To me, these are like scrap heap type guys. Could show up in a lineup or two, but I don't have a major preference on either side. Do you see this as one of the pitching spots that you want to get to?
No, I mean, Detmers is a good pitching prospect, but it hasn't translated to strikeout numbers or really much success outside of the no-hitter in the majors. Only an 18.6% strikeout percentage, 1.7 home runs per nine, 4.8 xFIP, 14-game slate. I assume we're going to just be able to find better options. Same goes for Tyler Wells, 16.7% strikeout percentage this year. Strikeout numbers are way down from when he was in the bullpen last year. 4.68 xFIP. we know that there are strikeouts to be had in the Angels lineup, but I just doubt that I end up needing much of either of these pitchers.
I think we're on the same page here. So we'll go to the hitting. And I don't know that we're going to have a ton to talk about. Look, it's on a 14-game slate. We are going to rip through some of these pitchers and stacks. And this one is just like a game that doesn't totally exist for me. We have the Orioles 12th in aggregate ownership. Remember, that's dead center of everything. We've got 28 teams on today's slate. We've got the Angels at 9th. Both of these teams are right around 10th in top stack, around 4% likelihood. Is there anything here for you for Baltimore, for the Angels, or do either of these teams look like a priority?
I wouldn't say priority, but I do think getting to either team is good. The ownership's low. Obviously, on a slate of this size, it's going to be low for most teams. Neither pitcher is great. There is power in both lineups. Obviously, you have Trout, Ohtani, Ward, Walsh. All are going to look good. On the other side, Mancini, Hayes, Mountcastle, Santander, all from the right side. You can't get Mountcastle and Mancini together, so that hurts. But I think both teams are in solid spots. I don't think either one looks like something I would expect to just be like jamming tons of.
Yeah, I think being basically 10th in top stack makes a lot of sense. Like they are just slightly higher than middle of the pack type options. Clearly go to Trout, clearly go to Ohtani if you'd like. I don't see any cash options on either of these sides outside of, if you get to Trout or Ohtani, but this game just feels like it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly expect I'll get to more offense than pitching, but
Sure.
Yeah, nothing that I think is like a huge priority on a 14-game slate.
All righty. Let's keep it moving then. Mets and Marlins. This one we're definitely going to have to talk about at least a little bit. 4.2 run implied total for the Mets, 3.3 for the Marlins. Chris Bassett and Pablo Lopez going here. Bassett pulling 22% ownership at 8,700. Lopez not really pulling any ownership at 8,600. Matchup here a little bit different. If he could flip-flop these matchups, Lopez might look kind of decent. But I think Chris Bassett looks fantastic. He's the 4th highest owned pitcher on today's slate. I think he's probably more like my second favorite pitcher today. So I like to get to Bassett. I'm probably going to come in north of that 22% number. What are you doing with Bassett?
Yeah, I think he looks good here. The $8,700 price tag is certainly reasonable. 27% strikeout percentage against righties this year, 24.2% against lefties. Obviously, we don't know what Miami's lineup is going to look like at this point, but we know that they ran like 7 righties out there yesterday against Trevor Williams, and I would expect that you're getting a similar lineup today, so that sets up pretty nicely for Bassett. Righties with a 168 expected ISO, 291 expected WOBA against him this year. Everything looks good to me.
I don't have too much else that I want to add here. Can you get to Lopez?
You can. Like, he's a good pitcher, but the matchup sucks against the Mets. He's also outside of Miami, which is never ideal. For the season, he's got a 24.6% strikeout percentage, 3.48 xFIP. He's good, and I think that it's one of those situations where like his ownership is too low, but also he's relatively unlikely to have a lot of success here. So in individual tournament lineups, sure, like he shouldn't be 1/11th the ownership of Bassett at the same price, but I'm just going to end up playing more Bassett because I'm going to have low enough owned hitters elsewhere.
Well, no one's rostering these offenses. They are tied at 26th out of 28 teams in ownership. Neither team in the top 20 in top stacks. This is just, if you're getting to anything, it's pitching, right?
I would think so, yeah. If you're going to bats, I guess you could make a case for the Mets just because they're really good, but there's so many offenses on this slate.
Yeah, this seems basically impossible. So I don't have anything to add. You're not rostering cash options here. I mean, literally no one in the projected lineup that I'm looking at for either team has ownership. So
I hadn't realized it, but somebody just asked in chat. Bassett hasn't pitched since the 25th because of COVID.
Yeah.
Do you know if he made I'm guessing since it was COVID, he didn't. If he made a rehab start?
Sure didn't look.
I'm looking now.
It's a strategy show. I can't be digging in like that.
He didn't. So that is somewhat concerning. I mean, we're talking about a 2+ week absence or 2-week absence. Not concerning from a performance standpoint, just from a how deep is he going to go?
Weird. I look at it the opposite way. I'd be more concerned about his performance than how deep he's going to go.
Well,
like to me, Chris Bassett's not doing anything other than his normal start. Whether he's any good or not is the trickier piece for me.
I mean, so like in 3 of his last 5 starts, he's thrown 109, 109, 110 pitches. I'd be really surprised if he's doing that in his first start back after missing 2 weeks.
That just feels like an aggressive, like, cut. Like the best I think that I can do here is like take an out from him in my projection. I just don't think a guy that always starts, that takes 2 weeks off, is just going to suddenly be like, I can only go 75 pitches today. I'd be more worried that like it's affecting him physically than it is that he's on some sort of like pitch count today.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised if he's not on some sort of pitch count. Like that pitch count might not be like 60 pitches, but like even if you're talking like 80, 85.
I think so much of this is dependent on how he felt. Like if he just couldn't start, but still did everything else and was just like throwing simulated games and stuff, then I don't give a shit at all. But if he felt like shit and hasn't been on the mound, I think that's where it's different. I don't know if we're going to have that information. Like, I don't care that he didn't throw a rehab thing. I only care how much he was actually able to practice for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, we don't know like what his bullpens look like.
If he weren't like a very established starter that goes deep into games, if he was normally like a 5-inning guy, I'd be a lot more concerned about this. But I'd be surprised if he's coming out here and just throwing 80. And like, if we don't hear anything, I'm changing nothing about the way that I project Chris Bassett.
Yeah, that's fair. I like him either way. I mean, it's not like he's super expensive, but
yeah, 8,700 makes this like, if you were 9,700 where you need the top end, very different discussion. I don't think it's necessary. Like to me, at 8,700, he's the clear best, and the ownership shows it. He's the clear best guy ahead of Giolito, or I guess ahead of Snell at 7,900. And Snell's a different conversation as well. We'll get to it. Lots to talk about. Pitching's weird, man. Pitching's weird. I'll tell you this much. If he had COVID the way that I had COVID, he's limited today.
Yeah, I was going to say, if he had it the way I had it, he's not feeling good. But apparently, I hadn't seen the quotes chat saying that he said he wasn't sick.
Okay. Well, then, perfect. Red Sox and Yankees. 4.3 run implied total for the Sox, 5.1 for the Yanks. Connor Seabold going for Boston. Nestor Cortez going for the Yankees. Seabold unowned. Can't imagine we're trying to target against New York. Nestor Cortez, also unowned. Most expensive pitcher on the slate at 10,100. These are always the tricky situations for me because clearly he should be less owned just from a price perspective. It's a tough matchup against Boston. At the same time, I don't see anything that like stops a decent pitcher from being good here. I think he should be owned more than not at all. Where do you land on Cortez?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably true, but I still just doubt that I get to too much because there's so many other cheap pitchers. I mean, even looking at Zach Wheeler, he's projected for 12% ownership. If you want to say that maybe Wheeler should be getting a little bit less and Cortez should be getting a little bit of that, I think that's fine. But you have Ashby, you have Snell, you have Giolito, all sub 8K. You have Bassett. You have Morton at 9,200. There's so many good pitchers that aren't even in the Nestor Cortez price range that I assume I just don't get too much of him. I mean, like right now we have. Yeah, I got logged out.
I had like 8 or 9% on the crunch that I ran, and I'm happy about that. I can't advocate for too much more, but
yeah, I mean, like so looking at our projections right now, we have we have Nestor Cortez at 15 DraftKings points, so I think that's going to change and come up. But what I was expecting to see, and what I think we will eventually see, how many DraftKings points do you have Cortez at?
16.
Okay. So if we use 16, he's behind, not even factoring in value. He's projecting behind Snell, Giolito, Ashby, Morton, Bassett, Wheeler, Gray. It's just going to be so difficult for me to pay extra money for a worse projection. By that,
I have him ahead of Wheeler and ahead of Gray.
Okay, so you're just down across the board.
But I am, but he is behind Snell and Giolito and Bassett for me.
Yeah, so that was the point I was trying to make. Was it's not like you're getting a worse value but a slightly better projection. Like you're getting a worse projection, a worse value. It's going to just be really hard for that to end up in a lot of my lineups.
Yeah, look, I get it. hard for me to like, when I say that I get like 8% of him, that's just sort of like baseball at work. It doesn't, that's not a stand or anything like that. He's good. There's a reason he's 10-1. That's expensive. It's a bad matchup. He's unowned. If I have a fairly chalky lineup, do I care that Nestor Cortez is there if the salary's there? No, but I'm not advocating for my 8th, 9th best guy today.
Sure.
That's where it starts to get weird. Like, I like him more than the ownership shows. He showed up 7th most frequently of anybody, and 8th, 9th, and 10th are all basically tied with him. So like he could be the 11th best option today. The gap between Cortez and Wheeler is the only one that stands out to me, is like, why does one get it and not the other? But otherwise, right. I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Like that, and that's what I'd say too. Like if you want to take a little bit of Wheeler's ownership and give it to Cortez, sure. But I also think the fact that Wheeler's only projected for 12% ownership speaks to how relatively useless this price range is on this slate.
Yeah, we're going to get to the guys that are really causing me problems in a bit. We don't have to talk about Seabold, so let's talk offenses. Looks like the Yankees, decent stack here against Seabold. First in top stack, first in ownership. Not even all that expensive if we're being, I mean, we've got 4 guys in the lineup that I have right now that are sub 3K. We'll see if that ends up being the lineup. Everybody that I have in the lineup that has ownership right now is, 15 to 20% owned. What do you do with the Yankees on a day like today?
They obviously look good. Right now, the ownership is concerning, though. I mean, you basically have 3 offenses on this slate pulling like all of the ownership, and the Yankees are one of them. With so many offenses, I mean, you're talking about we have the Yankees with an 11% chance of being the top stack, so 90% of the time not being the top stack. I typically just end up, at least in terms of full stacks, not getting as much as the field in a spot like this.
Yeah, I know just from the crunch that I ran, I'm going to be under these numbers on a slate that looks like this, but clearly they're still Yankees bats, and these guys look good. Lots of cash options in New York, namely. Seems like on a day where you can jam in sub 8K pitching and like it, 6,300 Judge feels like it's going to be pretty easy to get to.
Yeah, completely agree. And the Yankees bats too. It's not that you just like completely avoid them in tournaments. Yeah. Just mix them into lineups where they make sense.
Yep. Wouldn't be surprised if Donaldson is a cash lineup guy at 3,800 in third base. There's just a lot to like from the Yankees on the cash side. What about the Red Sox?
Depending on where they're
go ahead. Go Yankees.
Yeah, depending from a cash standpoint, obviously, Judge is a likely option. Torres at 4,100 is likely. Donaldson's likely. Hicks, depending on where he's hitting, is potentially in there.
Yeah. On the Red Sox side, they're not getting owned. 11th in aggregate ownership, but I mean, the highest owned guy in the Red Sox lineup is at 3.5%, and that's Trevor Story. So not mad about it there. 16th in top stack, though, because they are facing Nestor Cortez. How do you manage Boston?
Probably don't get to much. They're not going to get much ownership, so that is always nice with Boston. But Cortez is a solid pitcher so far this year. 154 expected ISO to righties, 26% strikeout percentage. Nothing that really stands out.
I'm getting to way more Boston than I expected, given their ownership. It makes me wish that Cortez was getting ownership so that like I got a little bit of additional utility out of it. But for right now, I have more Boston than I expected. A lot of that is wrapped up in Devers, so I'm not exactly brokenhearted. And no one's going to get to Devers today on his lefty-lefty day, so hopefully he can do some damage. I got nothing else for this one. Fun game. Interested in Cortez's ownership in the end. Could see it climbing a little bit to, 4 or 5% instead of 0.5.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, nothing else here.
Me neither.
Schedule for the rest of the day. This one's pretty easy. Baseball centric. MLB deeper dive. Adam and I running this one back 4:45 Eastern time. We're going to go for an hour and 15. Probably going to need it too. And then MLB Live before lock will follow at 6 p.m. So make sure you're tuning in there. MLB top stacks are free today. And if you're playing the UFC contests tomorrow, MMA fighter rankings are free. What the hell is the main event for the UFC tomorrow? Oh, Rafael versus Rafael. And then a whole bunch of other stuff that I probably don't want to watch. So that should be great. Tune into that main event kicking off at
Who is it?
11 o'clock. It's Dos Anjos and Fiziev or Fiziev, however you particularly say that. I don't know. But there's a lot of legitimate shit garbage on the rest of this card.
I mean, those are typically more fun to watch.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna prefer to watch the talented guys. If I wanted to watch, I don't watch shit other sports.
Yeah, but shit, other sports, talented doesn't mean defending better and not getting knocked out.
Yeah, I don't need to just see like untalented people. If I wanted to watch bum fights, I'd watch bum fights. Like that's out there too, and those are definitely more entertaining than third level rung UFC cards. Nah, Adam is not 100% right. He's 100% wrong. If I were watching it with like a group of like if this card was next week and we're all together just throwing back beers and like we want to see knockouts, different. If I'm home by myself watching this, I just want good fights, not garbage. I'm not entertained when two no-namers knock each other out.
Yeah, I can see that, but
Like I want to watch the main event because that's like some high level shit. And even the co-main is decent, but like I don't need to watch Amanda Nunes' wife get beat again for like the 8th time in 20 fights.
yeah, like Izzy. Like I look forward to Izzy fight cards, and I like watching Izzy fight. But also, I end up like just zoning out for half of the fight because it's so freaking boring.
Well, luckily for you, the next fight that he has is not going to be that kind of fight.
Yeah, that's true.
Like for him, he has to fight smart against a wrestler, keep him at range, outstrike a guy that you can clearly outstrike. Stack up those dubs, man. Braves and Nats, the reigning defending undisputed champions of baseball. 5.6 run implied total today is the largest total on the slate. 3.4 for the Nats is basically the lowest. Charlie Morton going for Atlanta. Eric Fede going for Washington. No one rostering Fede. Morton at 11%, 9,200. Seems right. Just looks like he's just got a better price than Cortez, a better price than Wheeler, a better price than Sonny Gray. All these guys look pretty similar to me. He just gets the benefit of an extra $800 over or $900 over Cortez.
Yeah, exactly. If you flip the pricing, you would probably be getting 11-12% ownership going to Cortez, or you'd be getting a little bit more going to Wheeler if he were Morton's price. But it's still kind of the same thing for Morton as it is with Wheeler and Cortez, in that he's still more expensive than that tier that looks really, really good at sub 8K. But at least here you are getting that little bit of a discount. He has a 27% strikeout percentage this year, 3.6 xFIP. He's a good pitcher. I'll get to him at this price for sure. Not a top priority because of the pricing on other guys, but looks good.
A lot of Eric Fede on the opposite side for you.
Yeah, of course, always.
Braves bats are third in aggregate ownership, second in top stack. Just like out of curiosity, where do you see Atlanta in relationship to the Yankees today? Because I feel like they're probably better. And I'm a little surprised to see sort of the slight separation here. I'd rather get to Atlanta.
Yeah, I think they're really similar. Fetty is just kind of a guy. He's not bad. He's not really good. 150 expected ISO to righties this year, 169 to lefties. Both of those numbers are perfectly fine, but he doesn't miss a lot of bats. Only has a 21.5% strikeout percentage to righties, 16.5% to lefties. That's always asking for trouble against this Braves team that has so much power throughout the lineup. So I think they're comparable to the Yankees. I agree with you there.
1, 2, or 12, or whoever in chat, it should be true. Like, should never be allowed to watch a UFC fight if you think that George St. Pierre is boring.
I've never seen a GSP fight.
Oh my God, dude. Go back and watch the Josh Koscheck fight where he ruined his entire career and stole his soul. He broke Josh Koscheck's face and then jabbed him in the face for 20 minutes. Koscheck looked like he got into a car accident after it. And all he did was just like piece him up with boxing. Incredible, dude. Incredible. Sign me up for all things GSP. I don't care that he came back and fought Bisbing after being off for 4 years. To me, that's even more impressive than like just because he liked that fight. Dude's incredible. Zip it. Exceptional. Acuna cash. Swanson cash feels weird, but 16% owned. It's kind of pointing in that direction. Anything else? Olsen, 4,300 certainly works. There's some cash options here for Atlanta, correct?
Yeah. I mean, Acuna is always on the board. Olsen's cheap. If you land on Swanson, that's fine. I think I randomly had a dream that he was batting last for some reason. I don't know why I'm dreaming about the Braves lineup, or why he'd be batting last in this dream, but that happened. Yeah, I don't know what to make of it, but yeah, I think Swanson looks good, Olsen looks good, Acuna obviously is always good.
Just, I can't believe you're dreaming about baseball lineups. That's so sad. Any Nats for you on the opposite side of Morton?
No, I mean nothing that stands out. Soto's obviously always in play.
Frank Castle is fixing to lose every single dollar he plays today, because that's the third time I've seen somebody in 90+% of lineups. And obviously go to Buxton, Riley, and Ozuna. But
I mean, the Buxton thing is a troll from like a month ago when Buxton didn't get a hit.
Oh.
The Whit Merrifield day.
Oh, okay. I mean, when I was smart, as usual.
Scoreboard.
I mean, which scoreboard would that be? But you just mean like the DFS scoreboard?
The DFS one with the money.
Not entirely sure why that has anything to do with whether or not Whit Merrifield or who's most likely to get a hit on a given day.
No, it has to do with which one of us is smart.
Oh, that's not true at all.
I
got nothing else for Braves Nats.
I was able to take your Excel knowledge and then just make it better than anything you can do. Proves that I am much smarter than you.
Something like that. Something like that. Oh, you can't be using that cup, man. That's a dead logo.
Oh yeah, I thought about that.
Also, I also don't have that cup or any other Osimo memorabilia whatsoever. None of it exists for me.
You said you don't have any?
Nothing. Not a single thing with an Osimo logo on it. Did you steal that shit from me too?
I was gonna say they only gave them the tournament winners, but I felt like I had already been too much of a dick.
Fair. Rangers and Twins. I'm going to go on to the next game because I don't particularly enjoy the roast of Josh Engleman right now. 3.9 run implied total for Texas. 4 for the Twins. This is quite the battle. Gray versus Gray. Who will be the better Gray? John and Sonny. John, the one pulling ownership, 8K, 12% owned. Sonny, 9,700, 3% owned. Which Gray do you prefer? Because I think the public's got the wrong one.
I mean, my answer generally is Sonny, but at their respective prices, I like John Gray.
That's fair. I have 4 other guys with lower prices than John Gray as just like simply better options. I don't know if Gray's low price really matters all that much to me. Not that I think that Sonny Gray is in like some great spot. I don't really want either of them, and that's really the answer for me.
Yeah, I mean, John Gray, he's not Giolito. He's not. I don't think John Gray should be getting half the ownership of Blake Snell.
I think it's about right, actually.
What'd you say?
I don't think it's crazy.
I think they're very similar pitchers, and I think, I mean, the matchup's not great for Gray. It's not great for Snell. Snell's got a 28% strikeout percentage this year. Gray's at 26. 3.4 xFIP for Gray, 4.03 for Snell. I think they're closer than the ownership suggests.
Larry just mentioned it. This is totally unrelated to baseball, but it just came out that Vince McMahon has paid over $12 million in the past 16 years to suppress allegations of sexual misconduct. 12 million plus to 4 different women.
Wow.
Oh, Vince. By the way, just in case you're not aware, Vince McMahon is 76 years old right now.
Did not realize how old he was. And
if we just say that, it says the past 16 years, so that started when he was 60. There's no telling what he did greater than 16 years ago when like media didn't really exist.
Right.
Oof. Oh, Vince. Vince. I don't care about the infidelity part, but let's see what you were actually doing there. Oh, man. I'll never understand it. Okay, let's talk bats. 23rd in ownership for the Twins, 26th for the Rangers. Twins are quite a bit higher in our top stack odds than they are in ownership. Are you getting any like sneaky twin stacks, or is this just almost like a total stay away game?
Yeah, it kind of just seems like a stay away. It's almost like the opposite of the Baltimore Angels game, I think, where I liked the offenses in that game, but not enough to say that they're priorities. I feel like it's the opposite here, where I like the pitching, not enough to say that they're priorities, and I have a really hard time getting to the bats here.
Yeah, I don't have a single person that I feel like I need to reference right now. There's no cash options anywhere to be found here. This game just doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to ignore John Gray. I don't expect to have him, at which point I don't care about this entire game.
Yeah, John Gray is the only piece that I would expect to really have here. You can always make a case for Minnesota because there's so much power in that lineup, but it would be a smaller slate probably for me to get to them.
Royals and Guardians, 4.5 run implied total for the Royals, 4.3 for the Guardians. Brady Singer and Aaron Savale. Neither guy owned. Neither guy should be. You got anything here?
Nope.
I guess I'm guessing you'll say Cleveland. We've got Cleveland 7th in aggregate ownership. We've got the Royals 5th, though. These guys aren't all that separated, but Cleveland is 4th in top stack. Kansas City 12th, although again, not a giant gap in just raw numbers between these two. Which team do you prefer?
I think Kansas City.
Do you get a lot of both of them? I can't really figure this game out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Singer's terrible. Cleveland obviously has Jose Ramirez, so that's appealing. Steven Kwan's cheap. Josh Naylor has some power. Reyes is still really cheap. But Singer this year, against righties, 22% strikeout percentage, only a 101 expected ISO. He's had significant issues with lefties with a 345 expected ISO, 245 actual. He is striking them out at a 25.5% clip, though. So I think it looks really good for Jose Ramirez. But on the other side, like, Savali's allowed a 219 expected ISO to righties, 241 to lefties. Merrifield looks good. Witt looks really good. Pasquantino looks good. Melendez looks good. I think I like the Kansas City side more.
I think I'm on the same side with you. Slightly prefer Kansas City. I just don't know if I prefer either team. Like, I think everybody's just sort of already owned where they should be, or maybe even slightly more than they should be.
I think, they're getting 6% aggregate ownership. I think that makes sense. Individually, there's nobody more than 8%. Benintendi's leading the way.
At least we know that Kansas City has a team ISO of 188 over the past week. I've never wanted to know anything less than that information. Ramirez for cash games potentially down to 5,200 now.
Yeah, I know he hasn't been hitting as well recently as he was at the beginning of the year, but it's still Jose Ramirez. It's a good spot for him against Singer. I would think that he's on the short list in cash as usual.
Yeah.
Is Bobby Witt playing today? I have no idea. I would assume so.
We'll find out in a couple hours.
They'll tell us a few hours before the game.
Yeah. I've never cared less about who's in a lineup at 11:30 in the morning. Is there anything else that we should touch on in this game? It's another one where we could just quickly get through it.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, again, I do like this spot for Kansas City.
Brewers and Pirates, 5-run implied total for the Brewers, 3.5 for the Pirates. Aaron Ashby, JT Brubaker. Ashby is 33% owned at 7,400 today. No ownership going to Brubaker. Let's hash through this Ashby thing. Clearly looks good. Clearly underpriced. Good spot against Pittsburgh. How do we manage the fact that Ashby is 34% owned?
Play him. He's cheap. The matchup's good. He's got the highest strikeout percentage on the slate at 28%. He only threw 62 pitches in his last start. That was after a 2-week absence. But that was also, he went 3 2/3. He gave up 4 earned runs. He wasn't pitching particularly well. So even though I don't think he was going to go, 100 pitches or anything, I don't think it was an intentional 60 pitch limit either. At his price tag, even if he's throwing 80 pitches, I don't really care.
I'm going to ask I'm going to ask this question. I know what your response is going to be, generally speaking, but should Scooble be not owned in comparison to 33% ownership to Ashby, separated by $200?
Scooble should be getting ownership.
Okay. I like Scooble. I don't think that the gap between these two is like all that huge. And it's just like I want to get to Scooble. I guess this doesn't really have anything to do with Ashby for this moment. I would like to get more than no ownership to Scooble is the easiest way for me to say
that's
it.
Certainly fair. When you look at the fact that all of that ownership is going to Ashby, Snell, Giolito, Gray's getting a little bit. I think Scooble should at least be in the Zach Gallen 9% range.
I think Scooble is better than Gray today. And that's not even talking about ownership. Like if Scooble had the 12% that Gray had, it would make a lot more sense to me.
I think you're just like lower on John Gray normally than I am.
I guess. Maybe.
Like they both have relatively difficult matchups. Gray's numbers this year are as good or better across the board, basically.
Team Tariq Scooble, baby. We'll get there in a bit. Yeah, I mean, Ashby, this is fantastic. He should really be, I don't know, like 8 something today. Instead, he's 7,400. Let's talk Brewers.
It's a broken price. I've said it on shows before that typically if you go back and look at my exposures across 150 lineups, you're going to see some slates where I'm concentrated at pitching and really spread out on hitters, and then other slates where I am more concentrated on bats and spread out at pitching. This definitely strikes me as a slate where I'm just very heavy on a few pitchers and then playing a bunch of different stacks.
Brewers bats are 8th in aggregate ownership, 9th in top stack. They look fine. I thought they would look better given, a 5-run implied total, but Brubaker's solid enough. I think they're probably owned where they should be.
Yeah, Brubaker's just kind of a guy. He's not terrible. He's not great. Milwaukee does have power. It is a good park for power. It's a park downgrade for Brubaker. So I don't mind getting to some of these power bats. So far this season, splits-wise, 201 expected ISO to lefties for Brubaker, 154 to righties. That makes sense given that he's right-handed. But looking at Yelich, looking at Tellez, those guys look pretty good, but these salaries have come up too. I mean, Rodney Tellez was like $3,300, a week ago, 10 days ago, and now he's $5,100. Not to say that he wasn't underpriced before, but pretty wild how aggressive pricing has gotten on Milwaukee.
Is there anything for you on the Pirates side, on the opposite side of Ashby? Any sort of benefit you can get from his ownership?
Not really. Obviously from his ownership, yeah, but there's nothing that I think really stands out. Brian Hayes is pretty cheap at $3,300. I like that play. Michael Chavis is only $2,200. But again, it's like if this were a 6-7 game slate, I could see getting this in Pittsburgh. Here, it's I think a lot more difficult.
All righty. I got nothing else here. Do you?
Nope.
Well, then it is that time, everybody. Let's talk a little bit about PrizePicks. Before we do so, hit that like button. 300 people in here, 64 likes, not nearly enough. Hit that thumbs up. Would help us out a ton. If you use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, you can get a up to $100 match deposit bonus at PrizePicks, which means if you put in 50, they're only going to match with 50. But if you put in 100, they will match with $100. It's a fantastic deal. We have the free PrizePicks player prop tool at Stokastic.com. I think that would help you out tremendously. You don't have to worry about beating sharks and optimizers, things like that. You're hitting player props. If you hit 5 of them, you can net up to 10x your entry fee. I'm going to hit Adam with a couple pitcher fantasy scores for today. We're going to kick it off with Chris Bassett, 35.5.
Under.
I got him at 33.5. So I think we're going to find better options.
Yeah, I said we have 33.8.
Nestor Cortez, 31.5.
Under. Yeah, under.
I'm basically in the same spot for Bassett. This is where it's going to get fun. Oh, wow. Wait, hold on. Charlie Morton, 38.5.
Wow.
Snap under, right?
Definite under?
Yeah, if we're talking about the first two guys, that makes Morton obviously a snap under. Sonny Gray, 33.5.
You said Sunny?
Yes.
Under.
You should obviously know where I'm at on this one.
I don't know where.
I'm under on Sonny Gray's 33.5.
Okay.
It would have been pretty hard for me to be over.
I thought you would like Sonny Gray.
Yeah. 28.5 to Tariq Skubal. Well, first, one quick thing. Your Gray projection must be off. Skubal shouldn't project better than Gray. Regardless of where we land on this, they have the exact same PrizePicks projection. So decent baseline. Tariq Skubal or John Gray, either way, 28.5.
Over on John Gray, under on Skubal.
Okay. Gotta stick with the gimmick.
We have John Gray projected like 4 or 5 points higher than Skubal.
That's fair. I've got Skubal at 26.5, which is slight under John Gray, basically the same spot. So let's keep it moving. We're halfway through this bad boy. Thank you to PrizePicks, by the way, for being the presenting sponsor. White Sox and Tigers. 4.4 run implied total for the White Sox. 3.5 for the Tigers. Lucas Giolito and Tariq Skubal. I think I've touched on Skubal at this point in time. I messaged you with Giolito's price this morning when I was prepping the show. He is 7,800 today against the Tigers. That's arguably the worst offense on the slate. He is 44% owned. If you told me that number was higher, I wouldn't be surprised. Is there any way to say that Lucas Giolito is not the best option today?
I mean, if you wanted to say it's Aaron Ashby, I think that would be an okay take, but I would lean Giolito.
Same.
Yeah, there's I think you're kind of splitting hairs between those two, but Giolito obviously looks very, very good, and I can't make any sort of a case against him.
No, he's got to be one of the two cash arms that you have today. I don't see a scenario where he's not. So he will definitely end up in a couple like $1,000 head-to-heads against you without him. Right. So lucky you.
Yeah, looking forward to the guy stacking Detroit today.
But why is he 7,800?
I have no idea.
How does that happen just in general? I have no idea how they land here. I got nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even like he's coming off of bad starts. Like he had that stretch where, he gave up 6 earned runs, and then 2 starts later, he gave up 4, 8, 7. But last 2 starts, 6 innings apiece, 2 earned, 1 earned, 6 and 7 strikeouts. It's not even like he's being driven down by his last game or 2.
Blows my mind. Do you have any additional Skubal thoughts that you would like to add?
No, I think he's a solid pitcher. I think he should be getting more than no ownership, but I do prefer all of these other pitchers to him, aside from ownership.
That's fair. All righty. Let's get into bats, I guess. Certainly not a problem going. It appears people have no problem going up against Skubal in this one. The White Sox bats are 6th in aggregate ownership, 5%, in fact, 12th in top stack tool. Are you targeting the White Sox here?
I do have some interest in the White Sox. They're getting a little bit of ownership, probably around where they should be. Skubal has good strikeout stuff. He has about a 26% strikeout percentage against righties this year, but also a 178 expected ISO. And there's a lot of right-handed power in this Chicago lineup. You have Anderson. I'm assuming Vaughn's back in the lineup. Robert, Abreu, Jimenez, Pollock. These guys all can do damage here. So I am interested there individually. Luis Robert leading the way at 8.5% ownership. So there's nothing, crazy ownership-wise that I'd be looking to avoid in this stack.
Okay. Tigers bats?
Yeah, I'm
just
good.
Against you in cash, correct?
Yeah, I mean, Riley Green is fine, I guess, but also it's a 14-game slate, so you're going to be able to find other good plays that aren't facing Giolito.
Yeah, there's no way for me to justify getting to anything remotely close to a Tiger today. So go Skubal.
Since he came up.
You're asking the wrong guy. I don't know what people's real stats are.
Yeah, no, I was kind of just asking and typing it in.
Sure.
And I mean, it doesn't matter for today. I was just curious. 111 WRC plus through his first 18 games.
Yeah, I never know how people are actually playing.
No, me neither. I mean,
shrug.
I had no idea that Tony Gonsolin was in consideration for the All-Star starter this year until the debate started on Twitter between him and Alcantara.
Who?
I always have to think. You've messed me up on a name so bad. I have to think about like the correct way to say it. But Alcantara.
No. Cardinals and Phillies, 3.7 run implied total for St. Louis, 3.8 for the Phillies. Adam Wainwright and Zach Wheeler. Wheeler, 12% owned at 10K. We've sort of touched on him throughout the show. Wainwright, unowned at 8,400. Just relative to salary, who's the better option here?
I guess Wheeler.
Okay.
I mean, just he's got much better strikeout stuff. 28% strikeout percentage for Wheeler. Wainwright coming in at 20%. Wainwright's still been good in terms of run prevention, 3.68 xFIP. But yeah, I mean, I think if I were getting to one, I would still get to Wheeler first.
Okay. Do you expect to get to Wheeler?
Not really. Not a lot. I mean, the thing is, I realize he's not getting a ton of ownership, but like it's just hard for me to see why in a lot of lineups I'm going to want to be taking the more expensive guy against the Cardinals instead of the less expensive guy with similar strikeout stuff against the Pirates or the Tigers. Especially knowing that because of the slate size, so many of my teams are going to have 5, 6, 7% owned hitters across the board. I'm not really going to care that I'm playing popular pitchers because of how watered down or how diluted like hitter ownership is.
I don't get the sense that we're taking any Cardinals bats in this one. They are essentially unowned, but the Phillies are 16th in aggregate ownership and 9th in top stack tool. Is there something here, or is this just sort of like this is still just a middle of the pack option?
I think it's still a middle of the pack option. Wainwright's allowed a 174 expected ISO to lefties this year, 199 to righties. So he has had some potential power issues, maybe due for some regression there. And Philly does have power in their lineup, but there's nothing that stands out as great. I mean, Derek Hall's really cheap at 2,600. We know he's got a lot of power. Schwarber, clearly multi-home run upside every game, but just kind of middle of the road for me.
Okay. There are no cash options on the Cardinals or the Phillies that I see. So this is basically just if you get to Wheeler or not from an ownership perspective. He's the only guy on either side, offense or pitching, with an ownership north of 3.5%. So there you go. Enjoy that, everybody. Oakland A's, Houston Astros, 3.9 run implied total for the A's, 4.6 for the Stros. Paul Blackburn going for Oakland. Jose Urquidy going for Houston. Urquidy, 8,200, 9% owned. Seems about right here against a pretty crappy Oakland team.
Yeah, on a lot of slates, he'd be getting more ownership, but obviously he's not quite the same category as Ashby and Snell and Giolito. For the season, Urquidy has only struck out 18% of hitters, 4.45 xFIP, good matchup and all of that, but outside of, maybe if I'm stacking the Yankees or stacking the Braves or something and need an ownership, a lower owned guy, he would make some sense. Typically just going to get to the good strikeout pitchers in that range, though.
Yeah, nothing for me to add here. Looks like we need to talk about Houston, though. 14th in aggregate ownership, 6th in top stack. And, a lot of that is just blended together, but I'm going to be plenty happy getting to at least a little bit of Houston if they're not going to pull that much ownership.
Yeah, I always am. It's a bad park for hitting. It's a pitcher in Blackburn that does a good job typically of keeping the ball on the ground. 105 ISO allowed to righties this year, 190 to lefties, but only a 151 expected ISO to lefties, 123 to righties. Strikes guys out between 18 to 20%, depending on which side of the plate. But Houston's just really good. So even though all of that stuff's working against them, it's only supposed to be like 70 degrees in Oakland as well. I'm still never upset about getting to Houston at low ownership.
Makes sense to me. Is there anything to get to on the Oakland side? Seth Brown, Sean Murphy, maybe the 20th in ownership, 28th in top stack, just for everybody that's curious. That's dead last.
Yeah, I mean, all the negative things I just said about Houston apply to Oakland, obviously, since they're in the same park, and Oakland just doesn't have the quality of hitters that Houston does. So, like, I have legit concerns about Houston, but I'm still willing to get there just because they're so good. Certainly does not apply to Oakland.
Just sometimes I wonder how anyone actually thinks about things. Paul Blackburn, much worse at home.
Oh yeah, we had the Blackburn conversation the other day.
It's just, that's like could not be a more, no one's much worse in Oakland, generally speaking. 397 xFIP to 350 xFIP across how many innings is this? 30 and 56. Those are the conclusions that I'm trying to jump to aggressively. But Paul Blackburn is that much worse at home. And he's Paul Blackburn. That's the problem. When he steps on the mound, he's himself. Doesn't matter. I don't give a shit what park he's in. Anything else here? There are no cash options on either side, right?
No, I don't think so.
Diamondbacks and Rockies. 4.6 run implied total for Arizona. 3.7 for the Rockies. Zach Gallen and Chad Kuhl. I haven't talked about Chad Kuhl since he spun that gem in Coors, but 9% owned Gallen seems about right at 8,300. Basically, anybody taking on Colorado outside of Coors is going to look decent.
Yeah, and Gallen's a good pitcher. No issues with that. 22.8% strikeout percentage, 3.87 xFIP this year. Good matchup against Colorado. Again, like on a lot of slates, if you throw $8,300 Zach Gallen in here against the Rockies, he's pulling like 20-something% ownership. It's just that you have 3 of the best strikeout pitchers on the slate, less expensive than him. So, and 2 of them are in really good matchups. So that's why the ownership's down, but I do like getting to Gallen here.
Any Chad Kuhl for you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Figured as much. All right, I'm looking this up quickly. I think I can look at this shit. Can I see splits? This is Paul Blackburn. Where's the park? What the hell is the name of Oakland's park?
Is it still the Coliseum? I have no idea.
I don't think so.
Giant dumpster fire in LA.
Is it Ring Central Coliseum?
Yeah.
It is?
Yeah.
I just want to see how good is he in the aggregate in Oakland in his career. I can't get over it. Yeah, 437 xFIP. I don't get the sense that his other numbers outside of Oakland are going to be too rosy when we remember that he's Paul Blackburn. We got to talk about Arizona bats here. 6th in top stack. That number is 4.5%. 2nd in aggregate ownership. That number is 16%. They are the 2nd highest top value stack of the day. I assume you're ignoring Arizona, but my bigger question to you is, why are they getting so much ownership when we don't have anything else to pay for? Like, where is all this salary going?
Right. That's kind of my thing here. They're obviously projected really well in terms of points per dollar. The pricing is basically broken on Arizona, considering that they're facing Kuhl. You have Alec Thomas at 2,800. That's a really bad salary. Ketel Marte's down to 4,300. That looks really, really good. But like you said, you don't need that. You don't need to be saving it like all of these positions, because you're basically paying $15K at pitcher today. So you're going to start getting to a point where you would probably prefer to play actual good hitters over just cheap guys that play for the Diamondbacks. So I get why they're getting ownership. They look good, but I think that they are going pretty drastically over-owned, given that it's not like this is a slate where you have like, 2 11K pitchers that you feel like you have to get.
Right. Like, let's just workshop this. 5-man Diamondback stack. Let's just say it's the chalkiest version, whatever you can get to. It doesn't really make a difference. These guys are just free. What pitching combination is is what you're going for here? Is that like Bassett, Wheeler, Morton? Like, because obviously you're still going to like Snell and Giolito and Ashby to get these guys. If you take Giolito and Ashby in this scenario, what are your one-offs looking like? What are those like? How much are you spending on the extra 3 guys in your lineup? Right,
that's what I was looking at right now. Because if you just plug in Giolito and Ashby, you have $4,350, I think it was, per player.
That's under every single guy in the Arizona Diamondbacks lineup.
Right. So now I'm just plugging in the 5 highest owned guys: Thomas, Marte, Rojas, Kelly, and Walker. And I want to see what that leaves.
Like, do your 3 one-offs become Devers, Riley, Ramirez?
So if you just take those top 5 owned guys, plug them in with Giolito, Ashby, you have $5,866 to spend at 2 outfield positions and shortstop.
Which I don't even know if you could do. Let me be more specific. I don't think that you can do that.
I mean, you can.
2 outfields and short.
You play Trey Turner at shortstop, Shohei Ohtani and Okay, wait. So you can go like Ohtani, Trout, and Rosario, Bogarts.
Oh my God.
So like, yeah, that's a really good high upside lineup, but you only need so many of those. Like, you don't need to be playing it, 20% of the time.
And the moment that you go to that Diamondback stack, you're with 16% of the field or whatever we want to say that it is that's stacking up the Diamondbacks. And everybody else is also going to the most expensive bats out there. Otherwise, you're playing a lineup that has like $44,000 in salary. This is nuts.
Yeah, like you can make some really cool looking lineups. You just, where you're swapping out Ohtani, Trout for Judge, Stanton, or whatever. But I don't know. There's plenty of other good lineups you can make too, like where there's not that much ownership.
And remember that this is what I think is like the key piece here. The chances that the Diamondbacks are the top stack, even though they're sixth, is 4.5%. We're talking like 1 out of every 20 you get the Diamondbacks there. Otherwise, you don't need their salary savings. I don't love this. I'm not going to have a lot of Arizona today. I'm pretty confident there. Thomas might sneak in just by default. Rockies bats?
No.
Yeah. Fair. All right. Time for one last little promo. God, 91 likes. What are you guys, asleep? Wake up. Wake up.
Already. Wow. That's surprising.
You did? I didn't know that you ever even pulled up the video. Appreciate you hitting that like button.
You didn't know I pull up the video. I get distracted by chat 6 times a show.
Well, having chat open and having the video open are two different things.
Really?
I usually pop out chat and never see the video again.
Oh, I didn't even know you could do that.
Oh, yeah. So hit that like button. Let's get up to 100. And then, everybody, mosey on over to Stokastic.com and use the promo code MLB Strategy Show. One gigantic word, all caps, MLB Strategy Show. Get yourself 50% off your first week of Stokastic Plus Platinum. I told you guys a couple days ago to get in when it was a month. Nobody listened to me. That's gone. It's fairy dust into the ether. So now, take the week. Come see what we have behind the paywall. Maybe this is what you're looking for. You don't want the full month outlay. You only want to check it out for a week. Now is the perfect time to do so. Covers every sport. Just because it says MLB Strategy Show in the title doesn't mean this is just an MLB situation. If you get in right now, you will get access to the UFC stuff for this Saturday. You will also, since today is Friday, be around long enough to get projections and top golfers and stuff for a major next week. Really, really good time for you to jump in to the Stokastic Plus family. We got the Discord as well, lineup builder, all kinds of good stuff. MLB Strategy Show, one giant word. Come sign up. Come see what we got. All right, let's close this out. Padres and Giants. 3.9 run implied total for the Padres, 3.5 for the Giants. Blake Snell going for San Diego. Sam Long going for the Giants. Long getting no ownership because he's not going to go deep enough into this game. Blake Snell, 28% owned today, 7,900. Great park. Tough-ish matchup. Where does Snell rank for you? How do you feel about him? Rank him in terms of all those other guys that are around him.
I think he's third between Ashby himself and Giolito. The matchup's not as good. He's not as good. Not a knock on Snell. He's got a 28% strikeout percentage this year, but you're talking about a 299 xFIP for Ashby, 403 for Snell, 369 for Giolito. All three guys, very similar strikeout stuff. 12.8% walk percentage for Snell is even higher than Ashby's 10.5%, certainly higher than Giolito's 9%. So out of the three, I think he's third, but that's also reflected in the ownership. I do think, and I mentioned it earlier, that the gap between Snell and some of these other guys in the price range that are getting a lot less ownership, that's where I think I probably end up pulling from. Maybe getting a little bit more Snell, getting a little bit less Snell, maybe getting a little bit more Gray / Gallen / Skubal. I think it's more likely, I think, that I do that than that I get less Ashby or Giolito.
Okay. I think all that makes sense. 'Cause to me, he's the guy that sort of like slips. He's the guy that I like the least. Maybe that's not the right way to say it. Because like clearly I like him and he grades out well and the price is fine.
It's more so for me that the Giants are not the Pirates or the Tigers.
For sure. Like 28% is pretty wild to me. Or sorry, 28%.
At the same time, we have him as the highest projected pitcher on the slate. So I guess if that would make sense. I guess my point is that would mean that he's going under owned here.
Yeah, I mean, I have him 2 points behind Giolito. Basically the same as Ashby. I have Giolito and Bassett as the two highest scoring pitchers on the slate. Still like Snell. Very interesting spot. Highest projected pitcher on the slate being 7,900 though. Like, just wake up, DraftKings.
And the fact that we're debating who it actually is between other guys that are like 7,900.
Yeah, right. Like that's. I mean, it's just a weird pricing day. Padres are 17th in ownership. Giants are 18th. Both are in the 20s in top stack. We're not rostering either team here from a bats perspective, are we?
Wouldn't plan on it. If I did anything, I'd probably go to San Francisco, but you have the pinch hit issues as well. And it's still a really good pitcher in Snell, so I don't see much of anything that wise.
Just curious because I'm surprised by your answer. Why would you go to San Francisco over San Diego?
I just like their hitters more.
Okay. I didn't have it as that big of a gap between the two, and obviously one of them gets Snell and the other one doesn't. So I was curious where you were at.
Yeah.
I don't want to get to either of them.
Snell's just a
I don't really
pitcher.
care.
Like
That's fair.
Really get in trouble. Not to say that like Sammy Long can't get in trouble, but
well, Sammy Long will just be out the moment he's in trouble. No, I hear you there. The volatility in the 25+% ownership does become mildly appealing, but at the same time, 3.5 run implied total doesn't. Mariners and Blue Jays, 4.6 run implied total for the Mariners, 4.4 for the Jays. George Kirby and Ross Stripling. The George Kirby experience did not go well last time, or maybe that was 2 times ago. I can't remember now. Stripling on the opposite side of 5,800. We're not rostering either arm here, are we?
So Stripling is stretched out. I think Stripling is underpriced, but also who really cares on this slate? So there's
get in line.
Right. And then George Kirby is another one where like there would be a lot of slates where you get him at 8,100 and you're like, yeah, it's a tough matchup against Toronto, but that's a lot of talent for this price range. On this slate, there's just so many guys. I mean, you have Giolito, Ashby, Snell, but then if you want to get away from them, you have Gray, you have Gallen, you have Skubal. I think George Kirby's good, but the matchup sucks. He's got a 23% strikeout percentage this year, 3.5 xFIP. He's good. But it's just like there's so many pitchers in this price range that are also good and not facing the Blue Jays.
The Blue Jays are 15th in aggregate ownership. The Mariners are 11th, but one of these teams is 7th in top stack. The other is 17th. So I assume you're getting to the Mariners like you did yesterday.
Yeah. I still don't love them here. I didn't love them yesterday. I was surprised how much I got, but I think Stripling's a decent pitcher, but certainly not as good as Kirby is. You have Julio Rodriguez, who is ridiculously good. So always like getting to him. Overall, though, I wouldn't expect to get to either team all that much here.
I'm certainly going to get to like Blue Jays one-offs and stuff just because of what the top of their lineup looks like. But I don't expect to get to a lot of either one of these teams either. Like right now, I did run a crunch. It's a totally random crunch. But when I loaded into my sorter, 13% Vlad. Everybody else is like 6% or below. And I will just never even bat an eye at 13% Vlad. I don't care what's on the opposite side, really.
Yeah. I've never... Like anytime Toronto is getting 2% ownership, they're just naturally a perfectly fine spot in tournaments. But I definitely disagree with the person in chat that just said Toronto is in a great spot. I'm not sure what part of hitting in Seattle against one of the best pitching prospects in baseball makes something a great spot. But
no, they're not in a great spot. If they're in a great spot today, they're in a great spot always.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't get a whole lot worse, but it's still a really good offense. So from an upside standpoint, it's always there.
Yeah, we can't conflate their raw talent with what like the opponent that they're getting today. Dodgers and Cubs, 5-run implied total for the Dodgers, 3.5 for the Cubs. Tyler Anderson going for LA, Keegan Thompson going for the Cubs. We're not playing Keegan Thompson. Where do you land on Tyler Anderson? 9,400 here. Not much of a strikeout guy. Not much of a good pitcher either per steamer, at least. 2% owned. It's fine. The Cubs stink. It's a great strikeout matchup. If he were a better strikeout pitcher, holy shit.
He's just he's another one where I like him. I like the matchup, but he kind of just gets lost in the pricing today.
Yeah.
I'm not going to end up paying for Tyler Anderson that much because there's no real reason to. 20.4% strikeout percentage against righties this year, 182 expected ISO. He's been lights out against lefties, 26% strikeout percentage, 115 expected ISO. Probably going to have a right-handed heavy Cubs lineup. You might have an entirely right-handed Cubs lineup. So that does drive down his strikeout stuff a little bit. Yeah, I think he's good, but yeah, I just don't need to get there a lot today.
I'm with you. Showed up a little bit for me, nothing too crazy. Can't really advocate too hard for it. So I'm going to keep it moving, and we're going to look at bats, and we're certainly not talking about the Cubs bats in this one. At least I don't think we are. They are 19th in ownership and 19th in top stack. I do think that we need to talk at least a little bit about the Dodgers because they are 4th in ownership, 3rd in top stack, and they're the Dodgers against Keegan Thompson in LA. It looks good. They're really good.
Yeah, they look good. Keegan Thompson, going back to the start of last year, 161 expected ISO with a 22% strikeout percentage to lefties, 205 expected ISO, 23% strikeout percentage to righties. He's not bad. He's just not as good as the Dodgers. They are pulling ownership, which means maybe I end up looking to some of these other teams that are a little bit lower owned. But individually, that's the wrong page. Where did I lost the ownership?
You should be able to find it pretty quickly. Stokastic.com.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll have that back up in a second. I don't know what I did with that tab.
You have one job to do.
Oh, I moved it.
Look at tabs.
Yeah, I moved it when I was putting the Arizona thing in. I moved it to my monitor and forgot that it was there. So individually for the Dodgers, Smith, Turner, Betts, Muncy, all double digits. But Freeman's at 6.5. Justin Turner's at 4.5. Lamb's at 4. Bellinger's at 2. I mean, it's still a team where, as a stack, it's not difficult to make a high upside team that isn't pulling a ton of ownership.
We're done here, right? Unless you've got a Cubs thing that you want to talk about.
No, I mean, right-handed power is fine, but not any sort of a priority.
Favorite pitchers?
Giolito and Ashby and Snell.
Favorite stacks?
That one's tougher. There's just like a lot of stacks that I think are good, but like not clearly my favorites. I mean, they like because the Yankees and Braves are at the top, but they're also really popular. I like Milwaukee somewhat. I like Kansas City against Savali. I like the Angels against Wells.
I'm with you on the Angels. GPP videos a little bit later, and then you and me running this back again at 4:45. Anything else going on for you today?
Nope.
There we go, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thanks for getting up over that 100 like mark. Helps us out a ton. Hit it if you haven't hit it. Again, good luck to everybody tonight. Adam and I will be back 4 hours and close to 45 minutes, 4:45. Be here. It's going to be a good time. Peace.